try to understand also not just like Bitcoin and crypto, but also why self-custody matters, because I think it'll be quite easy to kind of get into the pitfall of today's products that look like Bitcoin. They sound like Bitcoin, but they are really not Bitcoin. And I'm basically talking about the ETFs and maybe some tokenized products, etc. So, but in the end of the day, you are really not the owner of the underlying assets, being Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. And I think it's a bit of a pity because, again, maybe going back to the 2008 financial crisis, which basically originated from, like there are underlying assets misrated in that sense. I'm seeing a little bit of similarity in this. We as the industry are providing tools that are really easy to use and accessible that will allow you to truly own the private keys from the underlying asset yourself and not just rely on some third-party corporations or centralized exchanges. The idea of being in self-custody where you have two options. The software wallets are basically not as secure as the hardware wallet, so I would suggest get into the hardware wallet. And then, make your own research. I would recommend to everybody to get into self-custody. That's the message here.
All right, Matej, thank you so much for having this time for MadBitcoin podcast. It's such a pleasure to speak to you. I would like to start with you sharing your background in the Trezor. Trezor is the first company that invented this famous hard wallet for cryptocurrencies. Czech Republic and people from Czechia, you are very famous for your very innovative approach for everything related to cryptocurrency. But how you ended up in Trezor?
Of course. So first, thanks for having me. I am always glad to talk about, Trezor and what we do. So a little bit of the background, how I ended up in Trezor, which by the way, I'm with for the 7th year now. It'll be close to 7 years for me personally. So I was not there at the very beginning. The company is older than 11 years now. So that's basically the history. And yeah, I joined the company when there were probably like 30 people. I became the first product manager. It was very much like engineering driven organization. Yeah, we didn't really have they didn't really have like a full-time designers, full-time product managers. So I was the first one, and I basically established the team. And before that, I basically tried some of my own kind of startups. Actually, my background is in music, so I studied like a classical performance and guitar. So
Wow.
that's my very early kind of background. But then honestly, I was always interested in tech and startups, like entrepreneurship. So those things were kind of always on my radar, and I was kind of I wanted to get things done. I guess like that's kind of the sort of execution around technology was always my thing. And specifically to Trezor, I was basically introduced by a friend that we worked on some past projects before. So yeah, it was basically I applied for a job with Trezor. That's pretty much like a standard boring story, but yeah, one thing led to another, and 3 years ago I became the CEO of the company that is now much larger, as close to 200 people. In Trezor alone.
All right. Trezor was the first world hardware, and it was invented in 2014. Now we've got a lot of followers like Ledger, just to mention a few, and Bitbox. What inspired its creation? I don't know whether you were there from the very beginning, but how you think this inspired the people all over the world about thinking about the self-custody, especially for Bitcoin and, of course, other assets.
Right. So the original founders of the company that are still somewhat involved, and they're kind of sitting on the board of the company. They actually, one of them started the first mining pool in the world. So basically, he loved like Bitcoin mining operations. He created this company where people could join the mining pool. And well, he had some like personal experiences with with like Bitcoins getting stolen from like servers and some hot storage, meaning some cloud basically. So that's one part that led to this, but also the fact that basically there was no back then like a solution that would be like secure enough, but also user friendly enough for just individual people, regular people to be interacting with with Bitcoin easily. Basically, I had to be somewhat technical person to understand how to how to basically use Bitcoin. And yeah, they wanted to change that. They wanted to make the security of Bitcoin a lot more easier, and that's how they invented the first hardware wallet. Which, by the way, yeah, probably pretty much everybody who listens to us now has like a small consumer electronic device that protects your private keys from Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah. Your company is completely open source. It means that everything that you create, you just give it to the world. What challenges do you have, like being fully open source company?
Right. So the reason why we are open source is mainly the security aspect of it. So the reason, because sometimes people would think, uh, why you guys do it? You are crazy. You are giving all this knowledge to the outside world. And yeah, of course, there is some part of that as well, like in the sense that the ethos of Bitcoin, is built around the open source nature of the projects, and we actually inspire, by sharing what we do and how we do it with the world. That actually are even companies that basically jump started by using our code, etc. But yeah, the main aspect is the security. It's quite understandably, like if you can check, and the security experts around the world can check basically real time what we are doing with all of our like releases, that of course puts some pressure on sort of the fact that hey, we are like auditable, right? So the experts can audit what we do, and then the community can help us secure our products. So that's the idea. On the other side, yeah, there's the fact that we share this knowledge with the world, and other companies could potentially like use it to their benefits. And we are actually fine with this as well, because honestly, it's not that easy. It's not like some crazy business behavior that we would be just giving all this IP away. It's not that easy just to be really good at security, and so that's why we do it this way, because ultimately the transparency is sort of like a security feature for building world class product.
You've got lots of different models. Let's dive into the most classic one, the first ones that you created. It was Trezor 1 and Model T. If you could give us some like very short introduction to the features. I would really love, Spanish audience to get more deep technical knowledge regarding this product, because I think it's like the best one. So if you could give us more details regarding those two, Model T and Trezor 1.
Sure. So interestingly, the hardware wallets in general are built in a way that you can use them for many years. So even though these models have been on the market for a long time, the Model 1 is the first hardware wallet in the world, and it's been on the market for like 11 years, right? So that's quite some time, but these still work, and they still do very well, sort of designed for, and is protecting the private keys from Bitcoin, so and other cryptocurrencies. Yeah, that's the original model. It's quite small, simple, with like a simple display, 2 buttons. The continuing model, Trezor Model T, features the touch display already, and it also has a color display. It's then basically easier to use because it's easier navigating the instructions on the display by its touch function. And then yeah, I guess we can also talk about the newer models, which are Trezor State 3 and Trezor State 5, and those are sort of natural progression of those two models. Thing that is like a specialized chip that protects the secret, the private keys from Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies against different physical attacks. So if actually anybody would get hold on the actual physical device, it would be really hard for them to extract any secret from the device.
All right. You've got also like models that are dedicated 100% only for Bitcoin, because I understand that all those models that you just commented on, they are available for all types of the currencies, but there are two Bitcoin only. Why did you decide to have like two products only for Bitcoiners? Because we are crazy maximalists, or what was the reason behind?
Yeah. So it's mainly exactly because there are portion of our user base that really care about Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. They don't really want to interact with other networks. They don't want to see it in the UI of the software. that you can use the hardware wallet with called Trezor Suite. And to some like maximalist view, you can also kind of argue that it's a bit more, how to say, like secure, which it's not really more secure. It's just like, yeah, in this maximalist view, you don't really want to mix other, like, let's say, options to store other private keys from other cryptocurrencies. So yeah, that's the idea. But also they are branded as Bitcoin only, so they have these orange colors, orange packaging, etc. So yes, I think it's for mainly the diehard fans of Bitcoin. That's the idea there.
Okay. You also invented something that is called Shamir backup. Do I pronounce it
hmm
correctly? Like hidden wallets. Is it also the part of Trezor? So can you explain how it works? Why it's so important for, I understand it has been done for the seed leaks, but how it works exactly?
Yeah, so maybe not everybody will know or knows that we invented the BIP 39 standard, which stands for Bitcoin Improvement Proposal number 39, and that is the standard that allows you to create a backup or format of a backup of the private keys translatable into the human readable words. So when we talk about seed phrases and wallet backups, those 12, 20, or 24 words that the wallet would prompt you to write down. And by the way, not just hardware wallets, but also software wallets. That's a standard that was created by Trezor and Satoshi Labs as well. So typically, you would like create a single share backup. So if you create a new software or hardware wallet or the backup of those, you would write down those words, this like single seed share. The idea behind the Shamir backup, or as we call it also multi-share, is the idea that you can create multiple shares and you can yourself as a user can decide what is the necessary threshold of those shares to be able to recover the master secret. So let me give you an example. You can create 3 shares as a backup of those private keys and distribute them somewhere, like in different physical locations, for example. And if you lose one, you can still be able to recover the access to your Bitcoin by having those 2. So, and you can use a bigger number like that. You can, for example, create 10 of them, 10 of those, and have like a 6 as a threshold, right? So what it does is basically increases your security of sort of like a distribution of the risk of you losing the access and the backup of your private keys. So that's the idea there. On the hidden wallet, as you mentioned, or passphrase, that's a concept where, yeah, you create a backup, as well as I already mentioned, for example, those 20 words, and you can create actually like a 13th word that is basically your phrase. As the name suggests, it's a passphrase, so you can actually give it full sentence. You can use any characters you want. And in that case, you sort of create like a hidden wallet that only you know and access, only you have the access to, and only you know the sort of secret phrase that will unlock it. The challenge
Wow.
there a little bit for users to understand is like if you lose that passphrase or if you somehow forget it, it's not safe anywhere. Like Trezor doesn't know it. It's not safe anywhere in cloud. It's not recoverable as you would like a normal password from some website. It doesn't exist anywhere. So that's the challenge there. Like you really have to be sure that you know what the passphrase is. But obviously, the very cool security aspect of it is since it doesn't exist anywhere on the device or anywhere on the server, nobody can steal it from you, right? So you literally created a hidden wallet, which nobody can ever like steal from you.
Wow. That's really great. And you've got also the other product, which is very innovative one that I know that someone in the other parts of the world are also copying it now. The Trezor Keep Metal. If you could give
Yes.
us some more details about this one.
Yeah, so for you to be able to protect those words, right? Though that seed phrase that we talked about, you can either write it down on a piece of paper and store it some way safely away. But the problem with the format of it is like if it's paper, it can burn down. You can spill water on it, and it's basically not a medium that would be like durable. So we're thinking how we can make it actually more durable. And Trezor Keep Metal is the solution to that problem. And it's basically like a metal tube that you can unscrew, and then you can use this special tool that you can just basically integrate the wards into the actual physical steel, and then just basically screw it in, and it's like very nice, minimalistic design. Um, and yeah, it's basically like a much more durable medium and format of keeping that backup of your private keys secure.
Waterproof, fireproof,
Exactly.
hold.
Exactly.
Okay, you repeat in many interviews that security without usability undermines itself. We cannot sacrifice one for the good of another. If you could give us more deep dive into this, I think it's like very, very important one. And as far as I understand, this is like the main philosophy behind the Trezor.
Absolutely. So I think there's even like a famous sentence somewhere on Reddit from users. His which names I forget, but like it basically states something like security at the cost of usability comes at the cost of security. Meaning exactly what you said. It's sort of, if the usability part is not there, it undermines the whole concept, because users are prone to make mistakes, and they would ultimately lead to some coin loss, or basically some users not being able to secure their funds. And so we take usability very seriously and in Trezor. So that's, for example, why our hardware wallets have like the latest model, the color touch displays, and we really invest a lot of time and energy into like making the usability, the user experience, and the UI very good. So users know all the time exactly what they are doing and what they are signing. When you're, for example, sending a transaction on Bitcoin or other networks, we basically really make you understand what you are signing, what you are sending, for how much, what are network, etc. So yeah, that's extremely crucial. We also like to say that sort of self custody has three main pillars, which is security, privacy, and usability. So it's not just those two, but also privacy, which is extremely important as well. Because if you think about it, self custody is about keeping those private keys yourself and protecting them, yourself, as you would have, for example, like a golden brick, like somewhere at home. It's quite important for probably not every neighbor in the house to know about that, right? Like where you keep that gold. So alternatively, or like similarly here with the digital assets and with crypto, you probably don't want that information to be available somewhere. So that's, for example, why we don't have any user data. So if you purchase Trezor from us, from our website, we are legally required to keep that data for some time, but after that legal obligation, we actually delete everything from our database, and we don't really know anything about our customers. So it's quite important feature of the whole ecosystem as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And with all the nation state adoption and the big companies entering the scenario, are you planning to prepare something for them, especially for the institutions and for the individuals? Do you already have something for them, or will they be like using like the same models that you have? Are you thinking about expanding it on more institutional wise?
So our mission and vision are actually built around individual use cases. So we don't really plan to do like a B2B or even like a solution for nations. Let's put it that way. I mean, like theoretically we could, quite honestly, like we ask as a leadership and the management of the company, we ask ourselves the questions as well, whether we want to expand in that space, but we don't want to, because we believe we are, self-funded. We want to stay self-funded in that way, and we don't really want to spend the energy on products that are, a bit farther out from what we are trying to do. The original ethos of, Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer, I think that resonates with us quite a lot. The mission of the whole Satoshi Labs holding is actually, strengthening the power and independence of an individual. And for those reasons, we really want to stay on that mission, because basically diverging from it would mean we would not be able to innovate somewhere else, right? Like we would not be able to put all our energy and focus on the core of the mission. and that would be a pity. So, and also, by the way, we believe we have basically better expertise in the B2C segment, and also with the B2B and let's say that segment, it will also probably require more sort of like it's a more regulated space in some way as well, which again, like it's not something we are really interested in. So yeah, for those reasons, we are staying on the individual focus.
And are you thinking about converting yourself in Bitcoin treasury company sometime in the future? It's like very trendy. Ultimately, everyone wants to be BTC, TC. Are there any plans?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's like the next big boom and maybe bubble to a certain extent. So yeah, everybody's now talking about that. We quite frankly, we accept Bitcoin in terms of like you can buy the hardware wallets from us and pay in Bitcoin, and we keep those proceeds with us. So to a certain extent, you could argue that we are doing that for a long time already, right? So because we are Bitcoiners in heart, um, so yeah, we try to store some of that value within the company.
All right. And now let's skip a little bit to the other topic that I am like very fascinated with. I've been into Prague this year for the first time in the BTC Prague. I met some of your friends, and the more I learn about Czech, it's like very close to me because I lived very close to Czech Republic border. I was born in the city that is like on the border with Czechia. My father used to work many years in Czech Republic.
Nice.
So it was always somewhere there in my life. But then when I started to become Bitcoiner, the news from Czech were like popping up all over. You've got like Trezor, you invented the hard wallet. You've got other companies like Brains, which is like very popular for the mining. Then you hear about Czech National Bank that is planning to maybe in the future create this Bitcoin strategic reserve, just as United States is doing. Why do you think Czech people are so open to this cryptocurrency innovation? I also visited the bar that was like the first bar in the world in Prague that was accepting only Bitcoin like more than a decade ago. What makes you so interested and so open to this kind of the innovations? Because it's like everything is concentrated there.
It's a very, very good question, and we ask ourselves that the same one, like in the sense of like how come there are so many great Bitcoin companies, and it's like the European mecca of like of Bitcoin, or maybe like even like a global one. And like I think it's really related to like the post-communism era, or actually the communism era of like Czech Republic, Slovakia, Czechoslovakia, Poland too, I guess. We're in the same like bloc and of a huge influence of Russia, of course, and then yeah, the whole communistic sort of dictatorship, especially in Czechoslovakia. So I assume that what it did historically is basically it built like a huge mistrust with like governments and centralized planning, like the promises of um like the politicians of like there was like a huge monetary reform, for example, in 1953, if I'm not mistaken, Czechoslovakia, where basically people lost like a huge uh, amounts of savings because the government basically cut it everything by like a fifth or something or even more. Like as a value of the currency. So yeah, those kind of things happened, and I believe it has been basically since the Second World War till 1991, let's say, or 89. But like the 90s are also quite rough because then since the communism fell down basically, and then the 90s were kind of all about corruption, like so that definitely didn't help to build the trust with the politicians and the government, right? So I assume that is quite like embedded in the culture now, still, to be honest, because it's been like 50 years pretty bad. So yeah, I think that probably created a lot of new generation of like angry entrepreneurs that like really kind of wanted to say, like a little bit like fuck the government, and let's do something decentralized. And that's I think why Bitcoin, again, like Bitcoin ethos became so popular around here. But I don't know. I might be wrong. It's just like our hypothesis, I guess, when we talk about it. over beer with my colleagues.
No, we can talk about it here. I just like the beer, but okay.
Sure.
And do you remember yourself the moment that it was like it clicked, because I remember it perfectly. I used to study finance and banking. I was working all my life in the bank, and then I suddenly discovered Michael Saylor, and I started to listen to him. I read Jeff Booth, and it was like, wow, change
Yeah.
of the chip completely, which turned my world completely upside down. I was taught totally different things. Then I started studying Bitcoin, and everything that I learned was like, wow, it's completely opposite. Do you remember your like this special moment that made you think that maybe everything that we see around is not exactly the truth? It's not exactly what we thought it was.
Yeah. So like I would say, like maybe just like a little funny personal story, but like I was also interested always at school, like around economics and sociology, those kind of topics. So yeah, it was always my favorite subjects. And I really started believing in Bitcoin only after I joined the company. I knew it existed. I was like, okay, this is this fintech technology, which is kind of now a rude word among Bitcoiners, but I didn't really, I mean, I got it like it's some digital money, but I think I only clicked with me super loud when, I really understood what money is in the world and what are the problems today, right? And I think, I read a lot of books around Bitcoin when I joined the company. I think I also was fortunate enough to have been actually working with the founders of the company since day one, because I was the first product manager. Then I built the Trezor Suites team, and then led the whole product team, and then became the CEO. So I basically have been working with those founders day one. And they are Bitcoin maxis. They have always been. They will always be. I think so. I think they taught me a lot and kind of gave me that. I mean, by the way, they are super nice guys. So even though I really didn't know much, they were like super willing to like explain it to me and give me their opinions and provide a lot of information. So I think that had a huge impact on me because I kind of got like this insider view straight away from somebody who basically built the industry, right? Like who built the hardware wallet industry, but also yeah started the mining pool and etc. So that has been definitely super impactful for me. But also like even before that, I was quite interested in like the 2008 financial crisis. I was like, how did it happen, right? So even before I knew really about like Bitcoin, about like why Bitcoin started to exist, I really once I actually connected the two together, right? So I was like, wow, okay, so somebody really cared about this as well. And then all this corruption and all these kind of the problems with traditional finance. When I kind of connected with the solution, being Bitcoin, I was like, okay, wow, it's pretty cool. So it's not just like some random technology that just sort of solves the just money being more digital or whatever, but it actually is so much deeper than that. It's actually so much more profound solution to all these problems.
Yeah. I understand you're Bitcoin only, or are you also pro other altcoins? How do you see, for example, Ethereum? It tries to defend itself, but what do you think about proof of stake?
Yeah. So for us as a company, we always say like Trezor is uh, coin agnostic, or network agnostic, meaning it will protect your private keys, right? So it's a self custody. It doesn't really care if it's Bitcoin or other networks.
Mhm.
I think our company actually has kind of, when I speak for the people, let's say, of the company, I think we have both groups. We have like a Bitcoin maxis that really care about just like the Bitcoin features and nothing else. And we also have like people that are like big fans of, Ethereum, Solana, you name it. And I think actually that's the way it should be. I think that's great. Creates, I mean, if we are to build like ecosystem that supports more than just the Bitcoin, then I think we need to understand both worlds. And I think my job is kind of to also not making the discussion too polarized, but actually, trying to respect each other. So I would say that me personally, I'm more interested in the Bitcoin story, but also, like I said, like the core of the company is built around self custody, and self custody is again like the agnostic to what network we support.
Mhm. And looking ahead to 2026 and beyond, what excites you most about the upcoming products, and how do you motivate your team? Because you already conquered the world, you are the best, you've got the best product. What else? What else can we expect from Trezor for the next years?
Yeah, so I can hint a little bit that we are planning to launch a new product already this year. So that's I mean, it's something that's like super exciting for us. We have been working on this like for a long time. So, like I think that's where all the motivation is for all of our teams. I think we are really all super excited about that. So unfortunately, I cannot share any details because yeah, like we are building the marketing effort. So not to
Hmm.
put those in vain, but yeah, so that's something we are super excited about. But I think there's always more to do. I think we have a lot of sort of innovation projects going on that we would like to deliver in the next years. So I would say yeah, stay tuned because yeah, I think there's still a lot more we can do to improve self custody to be ever more usable.
And for our audience too, that is, I hope that everyone is inspiring to be financially independent. What are your key takeaways from your experience in Trezor and from your experience as a whole in the cryptocurrency? What you think where the person that is starting in the ecosystem should start from? I know that you are having your own academy. Are there any places that we can like refer from your side from for the people to start to learn, to dive deep into all the Bitcoin ecosystem, to know from the first hand how your products work, why are they so important for the self custody?
Right. So I think it really depends on what type of sort of content the listeners like to consume, but there's so much, right? Like you can learn from ChatGPT. You can really just ask any questions around anything you want. Of course, we as a company produce like ton of content on our socials, on our knowledge bases. So those you can definitely follow as well. There are a lot of influencers, such as yourself and content creators that educate people, where to start. So yeah, just like I think it's good to just look around. I think me personally, I'm like big sort of books and audiobooks fan. So also there's like a ton of really great books. Again, probably ask ChatGPT or your favorite AI agent, and they will tell you. But there are really some good books that put everything into perspective, and then I think it will click for everybody why Bitcoin matters and why is it great. And then as a general like I guess message for me would be like yeah, like try to understand also not just like Bitcoin and crypto, but also why self custody matters because I think it'll be quite easy to understand to kind of get into the pitfall of today's products that look like Bitcoin. They sound like Bitcoin, but they are really not Bitcoin. And I'm basically talking about the ETFs and maybe some tokenized products, etc. So it's basically like a legal obligation that somebody's like selling you. But in the end of the day, you are really not the actual owner of the underlying assets, being Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency. And I think it's a bit of a pity because, again, maybe going back to the 2008 financial crisis, which basically originated from underlying assets of people and companies purchasing was being basically shit and rated in like poorly or sort of misrated in that sense. And I'm seeing a little bit of like similarity in this. So I think that's when we as the industry are providing tools that are really easy to use and accessible because they're even not that expensive or anything that will allow you to own it, to like truly own it, the private keys from the underlying asset yourself and not just rely on some third party corporations or some centralized exchanges, etc. I think that's a like much better way. So, and by the way, I'm not even talking I'm not selling just Trezor. I'm just basically selling, the idea of like being in self custody where you have two options. You can be in software wallet and you can be in hardware wallet. The software wallets are basically more insecure. They are not as secure as the hardware wallet. So I would suggest get into the hardware wallet. And then, make your own research, right? Like we are the first one. I think we try to be like the best brand out there, but yeah, free market. So yeah, choose the best solution for you, but self custody. I would recommend to everybody to get into self custody. That's the message here.
I totally agree. I think that the self custody comes with a lot of responsibility. And I think this is something that we all learn when we start to be Bitcoiners, that we should not put our lives in the hands of the third parties, that it's always
Exactly.
better to focus on your self custody and to trust yourself, to learn, to educate yourself, and just not outsource something that critical as your financial liberty, social security, because I think this is the
Exactly.
key. For now, we've been like learned through all our lives that it's okay to give our money to the third party and that they will just take care of it. And then suddenly there comes with a lot of surprises. So I think Bitcoin is a wonderful solution for this. But of course, it comes with the responsibility, and this is something that we need to start to put more attention to.
Exactly.
It was such a pleasure to speak to you. I would love to
Likewise.
invite you here officially to come to Madrid next year. As you know, probably I'm organizing this first Spanish Bitcoin only conference, international one,
Awesome.
in Madrid.
Awesome.
There are already some big names confirmed. I will be announcing soon. So I hope to see you there. I hope to see your team, Trezor team there. Satoshi Labs, of course, too, and everyone involved. And I hope to stay in touch and speak to you soon, hopefully in Madrid in person.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your invitation. I love Madrid, by the way. I've been there many times. So yeah, I would be happy to come.
I
Thank you very
think
much.
Madrid is a great place to do that. I think it's a great bridge between Europe and Latam and United States. And
It
it
is
has a wonderful culture, wonderful heritage. So I think it's gonna be a great party there, and I hope to have you there.
awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to come and do some pinchapote as well.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You do.